Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is D Durrell with D Durrell Life Solutions. I hope everybody is having an excellent day today, excellent evening. I appreciate you all for coming in. It's been a while since I've done content. Trying my best to do as much content as possible, pending so many circumstances going on with me professionally, business wise, and etc. Um, just left the Dallas area over the weekend. Took care of a lot of business going on in Dallas, trying to build and do a lot of different things. Operating as a therapist, director, marketing, consultant, all those different things going on. I have multiple um, clientele for consulting throughout the country. So I just been doing a whole lot. And as I talked to you all before, it's just I'm kind of overwhelmed in at times, and I'm trying to fit in as doing as much content as possible. So I do appreciate you all for being here today. And so I want to talk about mental health professionals being content creators. And it's not easy balancing being a content creator, and then you have all these different things professionally going on. Because we are mental health professionals, you do understand we have to operate ethically, whether we're doing content or not, whether we're on social media, whatever, you still have to operate under the confines of those ethics, particularly when you're presenting yourself as a therapist and you are talking about things from a professional perspective, clinical perspective, as it relates to mental health, as I uh, have been doing for the last 7 years. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you all today is to kind of talk about mental health professionals being content creators. And so, I want to speak of it first from the position of my own experience, and then also what I have visually seen and observed and studied from other content creators who happen to be licensed or unlicensed clinicians or happen to have a certain level of training, whether you're degreed with a master's degree or above, as far as specialty areas involved in mental health or counseling related fields. And so what I've seen is that most licensed clinicians that I know who create content for the mere fact to speak on their experience in becoming a therapist, to speak on certain issues as it relates to the type of clients that they treat on an ongoing basis. And they talk about different clients, um, related to what they see, what they studied, what they treated. They talk about different mental health illnesses, terminology, and they present that in short form videos, 5, 8 to 10 minutes long, maybe 15 minutes long. Then I've seen situations where people may talk about certain issues, controversial issues as it relates to our culture, how counseling can affect the culture, certain behaviors, certain laws that affect our culture. They may speak limitedly on medications, working collectively in certain environments with psychiatrists, psychologists. They're speaking from their perspective, and I have done the same. I've done the same in speaking on these things, and then I've seen situations in which we see mental health professionals who have identified themselves as being as such, but they want to do content that is separate from their field of study. And what I've found is that once you present yourself as a mental health professional, that designation will not go away, and no people will not allow you to pretend to do something else. If they don't like you or something going on with you, let's say you're reviewing um Star Wars videos, Star Wars movies, and you're doing your uh, reviews on it, they are going to make comments about you being a therapist or you being a mental health professional. If you're doing content on sports, they're going to remind you, when you're doing anything that is deemed outside of your expertise, they will remind you that you are a therapist, and they will attempt to tell you how to operate. Um, I had issues with that for years and years before I decided to pivot back to my original reason for being online. My original reason for being online was to increase, um, the participation and the understanding, the education of the Black community, understanding mental health, so that we can increase the likelihood of people who want and very much need mental health services to receive those services. Let me let me repeat that. There are so many people in the Black community who are not getting those services, and many of them, and my perspective was to create a channel to allow African Americans to learn more about mental health, to feel more comfortable in seeking those services, and also educating those around them, friends, family, etc., and understanding the purpose of you needing those services, and maybe they would need services or consider those services in the future. That was my number one purpose. Okay. It ventured off into other things as I began to see, um, I would say, behaviors outside of a normal range throughout YouTube, Black YouTube, and things of that sort. And I began to recreate myself in such a way, doing things that are, kind of more performative art. It was looked upon very negatively by some, and it was entertaining by others. And so I made that decision to piggyback to just to going back, circling back to doing the content that I originally was on YouTube or social media for, and that's to strictly focus on my profession and to create content to elevate minds throughout our society. And I know I put a focus on the Black community at times because the Black community is the community that I'm from, and we have a lack of engaging as it relates, if comparison to other groups. That now there are other minority groups that do have a low participation rate, but the African American community is notorious for not participating or looking negatively upon mental health services or mental health professionals. So, being a mental health professional who wants to do content, I encourage more therapists to speak your mind and speak out about things as it relates to mental health. There are tons of mental health professionals who are on TikTok. I'm actually considering pivoting to TikTok. There are tons of mental health professionals on Facebook, tons of mental health professionals, as we all know, on YouTube. Many of them, most content creators that I know on YouTube, they do mostly short form videos, YouTube Shorts, um, post things, but they don't engage in a lot of live stream. There's very few that I know that create a lot of live streams, and they're pretty successful at live streams. For the format of the way I am structured with my time and profession, and the just fluctuation in my responsibilities, because I have so many roles that I indulge in. It's impossible for me to live stream and talk about mental health on a daily basis. Now, I can sneak them in doing the verticals and things of that sort, but it's very, very difficult. I try my best, um, but some weeks are going to be more than others. Um, Back when I was doing more performative art related content, I would fit the content into my schedule. I have made a conscious effort to no longer do that due to the fact that I felt like, looking back at all the performative art related content that I've done, was a waste of my time. Most of it was a waste of my time. Most of it uh, only complicated my life personally, because when I did those things, people tried to hurt my profession, hurt me working in my profession long term. So after paying lawyers and going to these meetings with my board, and even though those things could still happen in doing more professional related content, but the risks are far less. Even though those things could happen, particularly how far you reach, and the type of things that you may say, I found myself having to do that, particularly in the last 3 to 4 years, dealing with things on and on off, and then things got really ridiculous with authorities, police, and all this getting involved, and it just was not worth it. I regret back in 2000, I would say the latter end of 2018, venturing off into doing more sector related Black YouTube, more performative art related content in which I um, operated and spoke and carried myself in certain ways that were deemed as entertainment. But again, once you present yourself as a therapist, it doesn't matter what other areas you go in, they are going to revert back to the fact that you're a therapist. And that will never go away. That will never go. It's impossible for those who tried. And I have interacted with several other therapists in some of those spaces. I've known several social workers, psychologists, mostly counselors like myself, and they operated in a certain way. Some did more than others, but some of them would get out of themselves and act in certain ways. And I was, highly criticized with my professionalism in a non-professional environment. Uh, I I got to the point where I decided to just create another channel and do it separate, which also created problems for myself, and also with me trying to organize when I would do more professional related content as opposed to performative content. And at this point, my position, my priorities are my work related tasks first. And if I have time, if I'm able to do content, I'll do content. And I think that if I would have stuck with that, um, you know, I would have more professional content than I have performative content. I no longer do performative content. You can go to the DDRL live channel. You can see all of that stuff if you like. I've had channels taken down. I deleted channels, things of that sort. I have no interest in that. Um, and one of the biggest ways I got away from that, was to discontinue ongoing offline or online interaction, limiting it to people who are in those areas. I go in sometime and watch it for entertainment purposes, maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes. I go in, say hi, I leave. Focusing on creating more content, reading articles, giving myself more ideas, looking at things that I see that are trending as it relates to someone with mental health or mental health related topics. And that's my focus. I would encourage other content creators who are mental health professionals to do the same. I would read. I would encourage you to read any type of research articles that spark your attention, and do reviews on it. Read books that are self help related, mental health related. Do reviews on it. Create reviews. Read The Network or read Psychology Today. Um, you know, read other mental health related content online or professional organizations, whether it's the ACA, the APA, the Substance Abuse Mental Health Association, NAMI. Um, for my state, TCA, whatever your state organization is, for whatever license you have or certifications or professional um, organization, read articles and talk about the things that are related to mental health. That's how you can get your content. I consider that the easiest way, instead of you kind of looking through books and trying to look at how this can relate to this or that. Um, that's how I get my ideas for the most part. I read things. Um, I've also looked at my liability, professional liability insurance. They have a lot of information as it relates to ethics, and a lot of vignettes as it relates to people who went through certain ethical related issues as it relates to their relationship with their client and how that affected their practice. I do think that there is a need for that type of content, and it may be interesting. Um, I have interviews that are set. I have books to review and to um, review online. for people who ask me to do that. I'm highly busy with that. I'm actually behind. I need to review a book. I'm planning on next week reviewing at least one or two books and posting a live stream about that book and promoting that book on my channel for that particular person, and and see how the reaction is to that particular book. I have several podcast invitations to speak on healthcare as it relates to having a healthcare related facility, mental health facility, and I will speak upon that. And I'm looking very forward to doing that. I actually have a, I went through a vetting process last week. I have another vetting situation this week. Actually, on Tuesday, I will undergo the recording of particularly with one particular female who's a podcaster, in which I will have a 30-minute interview talking about mental health and operating a mental health facility under this healthcare environment and under this the government, the current government administration, and all the things that that entails. And so, that's where I'm at professionally. That's where I think I best fit. That's my lane. Now, I have other interests. I can equally do other things, but I feel that at this point in my experience with YouTube, um, if I want to function in a certain way and grow long term, I think my best effect on any community is to go through my expertise. I think that I would do the most benefit in that, and so that's why I made that decision. And so a lot of mental health professionals that I know, um, they like social media. They limit their exposure to social media. Um, some of my colleagues have questioned, why do I engage on social media? Some actually like it, and it all depends on your personality, where you are in your career, what are you doing. It's a hobby for me, um, and I have never allowed social media to affect me in such a way in which I am unable to function a certain way in my profession. And I've tried to allow it to fit into my schedule. And I actually did that for several years. And then I decided that I can no longer do that. And it makes no sense because I'm actually making money doing these things, and I know it's a hobby, but um it's not worth that. And it's easy to fall into that type of mindset. But as a professional who has, I've seen myself gain clients in the consultant aspect of my career, which has greatly been enhanced by me making a decision to do these type of videos. And I enjoy consulting as well as doing therapy, not as much as doing therapy, but it is a good second. It's a close second, and I deal. I have several companies that they consult with me for certain reasons for their particular programs. I turned down some opportunities. I had one particular facility that wanted me to write their policies and procedures, and that takes a long time. And I didn't. I don't want to do anything that's um, involved in me having to do long term uh, written work. I want to be the person to route you in the right direction, coach you in those directions, and put you in a position to win, but not actively creating literature in that process. And even though I do have templates and things to do that, I don't. That's a bit too time consuming for me. But I like to. I do enjoy being involved in the growth of companies and helping them grow, helping them get, insurance panels and contracts and interacting with clients. working as a team, all of those different aspects that makes an effective mental health facility or agency. Okay. And as a mental health professional, I create content about that. I create the content about that, most importantly. So I hope that for any licensed counselor, social worker, uh, marriage and family therapist, psychiatrist, psychologist, I hope that this video can find you and resonate with you if you are making a decision to do this type of content or not, and understand what you will encounter in the process. So I appreciate you all for being here, guys. This is D Durrell, D Durrell Life Solutions. Have a great day.